My name is Bailey Farrow. I was 30 years old, and I had already paid off every student loan I ever had. But my father still acted like he was paying for my college. That Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang while I was working in my office in downtown Chicago. I looked at the screen. Dad. For a second, I thought about letting it ring. Then I answered. That was my first mistake. He didn't say hello. He never did. Instead, he got right to the point. Your sister's wedding is on the 14th, he said. You'll be there. No greeting. No how are you? Just an order. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window at the city below. I'll check my schedule, I said. Silence. Then I heard him slam his coffee cup onto a table. That's not what I asked. I closed my eyes. Nothing had changed. Not even after all these years. Chloe wants you there, he continued. Your mother is worried you'll come up with another excuse. I didn't answer. Then he said the thing he had been waiting to say. If you don't come, don't expect another dime from that college fund. There it was. The threat. The same old weapon. The funny thing was, there wasn't any college fund anymore. Not for me. The money had disappeared years ago. Piece by piece. A car for Chloe. Vacation money for Chloe. Wedding money for Chloe. Everything always found its way to Chloe. But Dad still talked about that fund like it belonged to me. Like he could still take it away. Like I was still 18 years old. I almost laughed. Instead, I became very quiet. The same quiet I used when clients lied to me. What time should I be there? I asked. He paused. He had expected a fight. When he didn't get one, he sounded confused. Then he gave me the details and hung up. Just like that. I stared at my phone. Outside, Chicago moved on without caring. Cars rushed through traffic. People crossed streets. The city kept breathing. But something about that call stayed in my head. One detail. One small detail. Dad mentioned the groom. Cole. He said Cole had been helping the family financially. Helping Dad with money. That bothered me immediately. Because nobody helps my father with money for free. Nobody. And if there was one thing I understood better than most people, it was money. I am a forensic accountant. My job is finding lies hidden inside numbers. When companies collapse, when money disappears, when people get cheated, they call people like me. I follow the trail. And money always leaves a trail. Always. Dad never cared what I did for a living. If he had, he might have been more careful. To understand why that phone call bothered me so much, you need to understand my family. Especially Chloe. When I was 9 years old, Chloe got very sick. For a while, doctors weren't sure she would recover. My parents were terrified. Mom slept beside her bed. Dad worked extra shifts. The whole house revolved around her. And honestly? It should have. She was sick. She needed them. The problem was that she got better. But the family never changed back. Everyone kept treating Chloe like the center of the world. Years passed. The fear disappeared. The attention stayed. I became the easy child. The quiet child. The child who never caused problems. At birthdays, I cleaned up. At holidays, I washed dishes. At family parties, I disappeared into the kitchen while everyone sat with Chloe. Nobody asked me to. Eventually, it just became expected. I wasn't angry. Not at first. Mostly, I was lonely. Then one day, I realized something. If I stayed, I would slowly disappear. So I left. I built my own life. My own career. My own future. And I stopped explaining myself to people who never listened. That phone call dragged me right back into all of it. 2 days later, I was driving toward Indiana. The road stretched ahead of me. Cornfields rolled past the windows. The farther south I drove, the harder it became to ignore the feeling in my stomach. Something was wrong. I didn't know what yet. But something wasn't adding up. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. 4 cheerful messages. All about Cole. Cole fixed the gutters. Cole found Dad better investments. Cole knew someone who could refinance the truck. Cole this. Cole that. Cole everywhere. I read the text twice. My stomach tightened. After years of forensic accounting, certain words jump out at you. Better returns. Easy money. Helpful investor. Those phrases rarely end well. Especially when older people start using them. I pulled into a gas station parking lot. Opened my laptop. And searched for Cole Mercer. Just a quick search. Nothing serious. At least that was what I told myself. The first record appeared. A company. Registered 8 months earlier. New. Very new. The address wasn't an office building. It was a mailbox rental location. My eyes narrowed. Real businesses usually have real offices. Mailboxes are useful when you don't want people finding you. That didn't prove anything. But it was enough to make me curious. I closed the laptop. Finished the drive. And arrived at my parents' house after dark. The screen door slammed behind me. Same sound. Same house. Same memories. Dad looked surprised I arrived early. Mom hugged me. Then I saw him. Cole. Sitting comfortably on the couch. Like he already belonged there. He stood immediately. Smiled warmly. Shook my hand with both of his. Too friendly. Too polished. Too perfect. Bailey, he said. I've heard so much about you. Alarm bells started ringing. People like Cole always know exactly what to say. My father started bragging about the house. About paying it off years ago. About how nobody could ever take it away. Cole smiled. A property like this should be working for you, he said. Working for you. I hated that phrase. I'd heard it before. Usually from people explaining why someone's savings had vanished. That night I lay awake in my childhood bedroom. Thinking. Listening to the sounds of the old house. By morning, I had made a decision. I was going to look deeper. The next day I told everyone I had work to do. Which was true. Then I started investigating. The company wasn't registered as an investment firm. No licenses. No approvals. Nothing. That was strange. Very strange. But it wasn't enough. I kept digging. Hours passed. Then I found something that made me stop. Before that discovery, though, something else happened. Around lunch, I walked into the kitchen. Dad was signing paperwork. Mom had her checkbook out. Cole was sitting beside them. The papers disappeared the moment I entered. What's going on? I asked. Just refinancing paperwork, Cole said smoothly. Dad smiled proudly. Saving us money. I looked at him. The house is already paid off. Silence. Dad's expression changed immediately. Grown-up business, he snapped. That answer told me everything. Because whenever people understand financial documents, they explain them. When they don't understand them, they say things like grown-up business. I grabbed coffee and left. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Later, I spoke privately with Mom. I asked about their savings. She became vague. Money had been moved. Accounts transferred. Investments changed. Large amounts. Far larger than my careful mother would normally touch. Everything she described sounded wrong. Very wrong. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. That evening I tried warning Dad. Gently. I sat beside him on the porch. Crickets chirped in the darkness. I told him I couldn't find any investment licenses connected to Cole's company. I suggested an independent review. Free of charge. Just to be safe. Dad's face hardened immediately. You got here yesterday, he said. And you're already causing trouble. I stared at him. He kept going. You're jealous. The word hit me like a slap. Jealous. Of Chloe. Of her happiness. Of Cole. Of the attention. Of everything. My mother stood nearby listening. I waited for her to defend me. She didn't. Instead she looked away. Let's just enjoy the wedding, she said softly. That hurt more than Dad's words. Because she knew me. Or at least she should have. I nodded. Went upstairs. Opened my laptop. And returned to the numbers. Numbers never play favorites. Numbers never lie to make people feel better. Numbers simply wait for someone willing to read them. The next morning I found Chloe alone at the kitchen table. She was writing place cards for the wedding. For a moment, she looked like the little sister I remembered. I sat down. Are you happy? I asked. Her face lit up instantly. Very. Then she smiled. Cole makes me feel chosen. Chosen. The word broke my heart. Because all those years of attention hadn't actually healed her fears. Somewhere inside, she still felt unwanted. And people like Cole know how to find wounds like that. They listen. They learn. Then they become exactly what someone needs. Until they don't. I carefully asked about his business. His past. His history. Her smile disappeared. He told me you'd do this. I froze. He said you'd try to ruin things. There it was. Cole had prepared her. He had turned my concern into proof of jealousy before I even arrived. A smart move. A dangerous move. I reached across the table. Held her hand. I love you, I said quietly. No matter what. For 1 second, she looked guilty. Then she pulled away. And kept writing place cards. I left knowing she wouldn't help me. Not because she was bad. Because she was trapped. And trapped people rarely see the cage. That night, something happened with Mom. Something I will never forget. I found her alone in the kitchen after midnight. She looked exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. Like she had been carrying something heavy for years. Bailey, she whispered. I stopped. She stared at the counter. I always knew. My heart started pounding. Knew what? Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't fair. She twisted her wedding ring. After Chloe got sick. I was so scared. And you were so easy. So independent. So strong. She swallowed hard. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway. Dad. Immediately the moment vanished. Mom straightened. Forced a smile. And patted my arm. Go get some sleep. Just like that. The truth disappeared again. But I had heard enough. For the first time in years, I knew she understood. She knew what happened. She knew what she allowed. And deep down, it haunted her. I returned upstairs. Opened my laptop. And finally found what I had been searching for. Cole Mercer wasn't his original name. The company records led me backward. To another state. Another business. Another identity. Cole Halverson. Same birthday. Same middle initial. Different last name. The company had collapsed. People lost money. Complaints followed. Then the company disappeared. And shortly after that, Cole Halverson disappeared too. Only to be replaced by Cole Mercer. I stared at the screen. My pulse hammered. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was a pattern. A script. A performance. And now he was performing it inside my family. I printed every document. Every record. Every filing. Every detail. One page at a time. The printer hummed quietly in the darkness. When it finished, I placed everything into a green folder. Then I wrote one word on the tab. Mercer. I stared at the folder for a long time. Because now I knew. The wedding wasn't the real story. The real story was hidden in those papers. And by the time I uncovered all of it, someone's entire world was about to collapse. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I had one goal. Find out exactly what Cole had done. The clerk handed me the documents. I sat down. Started reading. And within minutes, my stomach dropped. There was a home equity line of credit attached to my parents' house. A very large one. The house that had been paid off for years. The house Dad bragged about every Thanksgiving. The house he swore nobody could ever take away. Now it had debt on it again. Real debt. Fresh debt. Recent debt. I looked closer. The lender's name meant nothing to me. So I dug deeper. A few searches later, the truth appeared. The lender connected back to the same network of companies tied to Cole. My hands went cold. This wasn't refinancing. This wasn't financial planning. This was a trap. And my father had already stepped into it. I sat in my car afterward staring at the steering wheel. Everything finally made sense. The investments. The transfers. The paperwork. The secrecy. The charm. The wedding. The wedding wasn't the goal. The wedding was the lock on the cage. Once Cole officially became family, nobody would question him. Not Dad. Not Mom. Not Chloe. Nobody. I requested certified copies of every document. Official copies. Stamped. Sealed. Impossible to dismiss. If I had to tell the truth, I wanted proof in my hands. When I returned home, Dad and Cole were laughing together on the porch. Like best friends. Like father and son. The sight hurt more than I expected. Because Dad had spent my entire life wishing for someone exactly like Cole. Someone who admired him. Someone who stayed. Someone who made him feel important. And Cole knew it. He knew exactly which buttons to press. I smiled. Walked past them. Said nothing. Inside my room, I organized everything. Every document. Every record. Every filing. Every certified copy. The green folder became thicker. Heavier. More dangerous. Then I gave my parents one last chance. That night, I asked them to sit with me at the kitchen table. Just the three of us. No accusations. No yelling. No drama. I opened the folder. Carefully. Gently. I showed them the debt on the house. I showed them the missing licenses. I showed them the old company. And finally, I showed them the name. Cole Halverson. My father barely looked. His face filled with anger before he even read a page. So that's why you came? I blinked. What? To destroy your sister's happiness. I couldn't believe it. The debt didn't matter. The lies didn't matter. The documents didn't matter. To him, the problem was me. Mom picked up one of the papers. For 1 second, hope flickered inside me. Maybe she'd finally see. Maybe she'd finally understand. Then she quietly set it back down. People change names, she said. I changed mine when I married your father. My heart sank. They had chosen. Not the truth. Not the evidence. They had chosen the story they wanted to believe. And there was nothing more I could do. I closed the folder. Okay, I said. Dad looked satisfied. Like he had won. But something inside me changed at that moment. I stopped trying to save people who didn't want saving. Instead, I started preparing for what came next. That night, I called a lawyer I trusted in Chicago. I explained everything. Every document. Every filing. Every concern. She listened carefully. Then she gave me simple advice. Stick to facts. Nothing more. Nothing less. Don't accuse. Don't speculate. Don't guess. Let the documents speak. That was exactly what I planned to do. The next evening was the rehearsal dinner. The entire family gathered at the nicest restaurant in town. Everyone laughed. Everyone celebrated. Everyone admired Cole. During dinner, my phone rang. A partner from a consulting firm. A major case. A settlement worth millions. I stepped outside to take the call. When I returned, one of my aunts asked who it was. Just work, I said. Dad laughed. Bean counting. Everyone chuckled. Everyone except Cole. Cole was watching me differently now. Carefully. Like he was finally trying to figure out who I really was. But nobody else cared. To them, I was still the quiet daughter who left town years ago. The daughter nobody bothered learning about. And honestly? That worked in my favor. People reveal more when they underestimate you. The next night was the rehearsal at the church. Afterward, everyone returned to the house. Mom had baked her lemon sheet cake. The same cake from every birthday. Every graduation. Every family gathering. The bright yellow cake sat in the middle of the table. Everyone crowded around it. Everyone except me. I stood in the kitchen doorway. Exactly where I'd always stood. Watching. Waiting. Invisible. Then Cole walked over. Wine glass in hand. Perfect smile. Perfect confidence. He leaned close enough that nobody else could hear. You work with assets, right? I nodded. Something like that. He smiled. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to transfer property to family before a wedding, what's the smartest way? There it was. The confirmation. The final piece. He wasn't done. He still wanted the house. I smiled politely. Oh, I mostly just find things. For the first time, his smile weakened. Only slightly. But I saw it. And he saw that I saw it. Neither of us said another word. That night I barely slept. I spent hours reviewing every document again. Every page. Every detail. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. The wedding reception would be the moment. The perfect moment. Dad would be emotional. Proud. Distracted. Happy. The exact state of mind a man like Cole wanted. One signature. One deed. One transfer. And everything would change. The wedding morning arrived. I woke before sunrise. Got dressed. Placed the green folder inside a leather portfolio. Checked every seal. Every page. Every document. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. Navy dress. Steady hands. Calm eyes. I wasn't going there to fight. I wasn't going there to embarrass anyone. I was going there to tell the truth. Nothing more. Nothing less. Before leaving, Dad stopped me in the hallway. He adjusted his rented suit. Smiled proudly. Then ruined the moment. Keep your opinions to yourself today. I said nothing. And remember, he added, that college fund can still disappear. The college fund. Even now. Even after everything. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. I'll behave. He smiled. Thinking he had won. Thinking I had surrendered. He had no idea. The reception was held in a huge banquet hall. Nearly 200 guests filled the room. White tablecloths. Music. Flowers. Champagne. Everything looked perfect. I sat at a table near the back. Exactly where they placed me. Exactly where they always placed me. Far enough away to be forgotten. Close enough to attend. Dinner ended. The speeches began. Then it happened. Exactly as I predicted. Cole stood. Tapped his glass. And smiled. Before we continue, he said, I have a special surprise. The room became quiet. Dad beamed. Mom smiled. Chloe looked thrilled. Cole lifted a leather folder. My pulse slowed. Not faster. Slower. Because now I knew. He explained how important family was. How much he loved my parents. How grateful he felt. Then he invited Dad to the front. Let's protect the family legacy. The room applauded. Dad walked forward. Cole produced papers. A deed. A pen. Everything ready. Everything prepared. Dad reached for the pen. And I stood. The room didn't notice at first. I began walking toward the front. Slowly. Calmly. Dad saw me. His smile disappeared. Look who finally decided to join us, he joked into the microphone. People laughed. Then he made a mistake. A huge mistake. I practically had to threaten her to get her here. More laughter. Come to the wedding or lose the college money. The crowd chuckled. They thought it was harmless. They thought it was funny. I stopped beside the head table. And spoke. You did threaten me. The room grew quieter. But you got one thing wrong. Dad frowned. I never needed the money. Silence. Real silence. The kind that changes everything. Cole's smile froze. Mom looked nervous. Dad looked confused. Then angry. Oh, here we go, he snapped. Go ahead. Ruin everything. I shook my head. No. Then I opened the portfolio. Placed the green folder on the table. And started laying out the documents. One by one. These are public records. The room watched. These are facts. I showed the licensing search. No registration. No investment license. I showed the certified debt documents. A lien against the house. Dad's face turned white. Then I placed down the final page. Cole Halverson. The old company. The old identity. The complaints. The history. I looked directly at Chloe. I'm not calling him a criminal. The room was completely silent now. I'm saying these documents exist. And before anyone signs anything tonight, they deserve answers. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Cole laughed. A fake laugh. A desperate laugh. She's jealous. The old story. The easy story. The familiar story. But it wasn't working anymore. Not with the papers sitting there. Not with the official seals. Not with 200 witnesses watching. His smile cracked. His voice rose. His face changed. The charming future son-in-law disappeared. Something uglier appeared underneath. You think you're smarter than everyone. The room flinched. Because suddenly they saw him. Really saw him. For the first time. I didn't print the seals, I said quietly. The calmer I became, the louder he became. The louder he became, the worse he looked. Then Dad finally looked down. Really looked. At the debt. At the signatures. At the documents. His hands started shaking. Chloe's the one who stayed, he whispered. The old excuse. The old favorite child story. But this time it sounded broken. Sad. Empty. Even he heard it. Cole saw the room turning against him. Saw the evidence. Saw the witnesses. Saw the truth. Then he made one final decision. He set down the pen. Walked toward the exit. And left. Just left. No explanation. No goodbye. No defense. Gone. The side door closed behind him. And he never came back. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then everything exploded. Mom cried. Guests whispered. Family members argued. Chloe ran outside searching for Cole. She came back alone. Her veil crooked. Her face shattered. Dad sat down heavily. Holding the debt documents. Reading them again. And again. And again. Finally, he looked at me. Not as a child. Not as a disappointment. Not as an afterthought. For the first time in my life, he looked at me as the person who understood. Bailey, he whispered. His voice was small. What do we do? That question hurt more than everything else. Because all my life I had wanted him to ask for my help. And now that he finally did, I wasn't the same person anymore. I knelt beside him. And spoke gently. I'll help. Relief flooded his face. Then I continued. But only on paper. He blinked. What? I'll help save the house. I pointed to the documents. I'll bring in lawyers. I'll help with the debt. I'll build a plan. Then I looked him directly in the eyes. But I'm not the family bank. His shoulders dropped. I'm not the family fixer. Tears filled Mom's eyes. I'm your daughter. The room stayed silent. And that's the help I'm willing to give. Dad nodded slowly. For once, he didn't argue. 3 days later, Cole disappeared completely. The money already moved was gone. The authorities became involved. The same documents I showed at the wedding ended up in official hands. Exactly where they belonged. The debt remained. The damage remained. But the house survived. I kept my promise. I hired professionals. Created legal protections. Structured repayment plans. Everything documented. Everything clear. Everything fair. Months later, I drove back to the house. The screen door slammed behind me. Same sound. Different feeling. The kitchen table was covered in paperwork. And beside the paperwork sat a lemon sheet cake. Mom had baked it for me. For me. Not for Chloe. Not for guests. Not for appearances. For me. The cake sat beside my chair. Waiting. When the paperwork was finished, Mom walked me outside. We stood together on the porch. The evening air was cool. Quiet. And finally, she finished the sentence she started weeks earlier. It wasn't fair. I closed my eyes. She continued. I knew. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I knew for years. The words hurt. But they also healed. Because they were honest. Finally honest. I let it happen because it was easier. I said nothing. I was wrong. The apology hung between us. Simple. Real. No excuses. No defenses. No explanations. Just truth. And for the first time, that was enough. I hear you, I said. She nodded. Neither of us cried. Neither of us needed to. The truth had finally been spoken. When I got into my car, I looked back one last time. At the house. At the porch. At the screen door. At the family that spent 33 years teaching me I was second. Then I smiled. Because they finally learned something too. I never needed their money. I never needed their approval. And I never needed a seat at their table. What I needed was boundaries. And now I had them. Written down. Protected. Clear. Just like every important thing in life should be. That was the day my family finally learned something I had known for years. The most valuable thing I ever owned was never a college fund. Never a paycheck. Never a house. It was the ability to walk away from people who refused to see my worth. And the strength to return only on my own terms.